anxious to step through the gate again, Major?
Yes, I am.
We all are.
Would you like us to bring back anything special?
No thanks.
Groceries, new outfit, flatware?
No, just yourselves in one piece, please. Dial it up. You safe.
Welcome to the Jumping Puddles podcast. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and or YouTube. And follow us at Jumping Puddles Podcast on Tumblr and Instagram. And Jumping Pud Pod on Twitter. Hi, I'm American Sam, and with me are my fellow co-hosts, Tor and Ash.
Hey!
Hi!
And this week, we watched The Siege Part 3. The Daedalus arrives to defend Atlantis from the Wraith onslaught, but it may not be enough when the team discovers that an even larger armada is on the way. Meanwhile, Ford seems changed after a fall in the water.
Dun,
Dun, dun,
dun,
dun.
dun.
I feel like this episode was super fitting to have a dun 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 after the summary, because a lot of bad things are happening. 12 Wraith ships and poor Ford.
Ford seems changed. That's one way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
He was fucking zombified or something.
Zombie Ford! Stop saying that, Zombie Ford.
Okay, someone write that fic right now.
Yeah. He's entered a zombie era.
He wears it well.
Oh, man. No, because you know what? Ford did not deserve all this. They could have written him off in like a, I don't know, semi-nice way. They really had to say, hey, what if we caused him the most pain ever? What if we turned him into his worst version of himself? And honestly, whoever made the decision, I am under your bed.
Yeah, but I agree. It was super rough. Particularly the scene, a couple scenes actually. One being when Beckett's like, you need to go back to the infirmary. And Ford, like, chokeholds him. Yeah, that wasn't great. Although, despite not loving this part of Ford's character arc, I do sort of like what it brings out in the team. In particular, in that scene, Elizabeth was just so calm in the scenario, and I think she really needed to be. And she provided Ford with a sort of solace and stability that he really needed in that moment. And also Teyla being a super grounding presence and him actually listening to her, you know, which is nice because it shows subtly, but their whole character arc, their whole relationship throughout the season and how they've built that sort of respect between each other. But yeah, still a rough moment. Poor Beckett.
No, because Carson didn't deserve that, okay? I know we all have, you know, our different thoughts on Carson, but still, that was so mean. Especially when you remember that, like, back during that two-parter for the Siege and the Storm in the Eye, when Ford and Carson were already kind of, like, beefing, it just feels, like, extra mean that Ford is the one to, like, chokehold him against the door. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel so bad. And I agree with you said. What it brings out in the team is really, it brings out like a sense of, it brings out the angst. The angst in a way that like it really can't otherwise. And I do like that we'll get to see more of it in season 2. Don't love the unresolved nature of it, but we'll get there. But at least, you know, it's a recurring thing in this next season, and I really do like it, even though it hurts. And he deserved more.
Yeah, I can just agree with what you both of you said. I also loved that scene. I found it very interesting, the one with the chokehold. Because it's one of the scenes where I don't really know how this enzyme really works in him. But in this scene, it seemed like he could still snap out of it and come back to his normal child childish self, because there's this moment where Teyla talks to him and in this very calm manner says, yeah, let him go, or something like that. And then then Ford apologizes to Carson and everything, and it's so sweet because he doesn't really seem to realize what he just did. Or it seems like something was just taking over, and this part is taking over more and more until it just completely consumes him. And yeah, I really liked that scene. And I also liked when they walk into, or is it later? I'm not sure. But there's one scene where I think Rodney sees Ford like that for the first time, and he keeps staring at him, and keeps staring like, what is going on? And he has like this really weirded out look on his face because Ford is acting like nothing happened and like he's totally fine. I'm like, have you looked at your face? Have you looked into a mirror? You're not fine. I'm sorry, but you're not fine. So I like that. He was getting a lot of funny looks, but the strongest came from Rodney, and I thought it was he has no poker face whatsoever.
Oh man,
He'd lose his
so
shirt
true.
at poker night on Atlantis.
Oh my god, yeah. I love that you brought up Rodney though and Ford, because I was gonna say, like I just love throughout the season, I think we've seen honestly that his strongest bond is weirdly with Rodney, and the show tries to tell you it's not, that it's with John, but I like don't see it. Skipping ahead to that last scene when John is like in the hall and about to shoot like Ford and stuff, and then Ford, escapes, and John's like looking at like the gate all sad. I was just like, I don't I feel like maybe before I might have like felt something. I've been like, oh yeah, but I think like looking back on it and looking, watching these episodes with our critical eye, I was just very like, oh yeah, he's sad that like he's losing like a member of his team. I don't necessarily think it was about Ford, him as a person. That's kind of where I was like, oh. And I feel like they low-key just reinforced the idea more though. I mean, skipping ahead as well. But I feel like in season 2, we get quite a lot of moments with Rodney and Ford after he's been zombified. So we'll look forward to that. But yeah, so poor Rodney. Rodney's confused and sad, doesn't know what's happening. And I just think, I don't know if those John and Ford moments really hit as hard as they want to.
Yeah, I noticed that that earlier, like before they find Ford, it's like they are looking for him, and it's John who enforces like the search even further and suggests searching outside of the city, even if everybody thinks he's crazy. And I thought it was interesting because it shows that John really cares about his team members. But Sam, you're totally right that we didn't really get a lot of John Ford moments that would solidify this relationship for the viewers.
Ford's like best relationships are honestly Rodney and Teyla.
Yeah.
100% agree. Yeah, for sure. Just racking my brain, I can really only think of like 1 or 2 moments that really showcase John and Ford's relationship, whereas with Teyla and Ford, I can think of plenty, like almost one an episode. And Ford and Rodney.
Even if it's tiny ones.
Yeah. Yeah. They just have more screen time together, I feel like, or more friendly interactions and not just like, what are your orders, sir? And then doing. But it's interesting that you guys brought that up because especially the confrontation between John and Ford right at the end of the episode, because Martin Wood, who was the director, actually did an interview with TV Magazine where he said, and I quote, "There's a scene at the very end with Sheppard stalking Ford. The Major has a life science detector and is aware of Ford's location. However, the lieutenant also knows where Sheppard is because of his new superpowers, which include heightened sense of strength and hearing, sight, and smell. They ultimately face off against each other, and when it was time for us to shoot that, Joe and Rainbow both came to me and said, as written, the scene lets our characters off a little easy. Can we take it in a different direction? We had to compromise that because the way the scene was written, it was really important to the next episode. Runner." So I find it interesting that both Joe and Rainbow were kind of hoping for something a little meatier, and I think maybe a little more, I don't know, introspective in terms of these characters and their relationship, more intense maybe, versus what they had to do on script to sort of usher in Ronan as a teammate, but that was super, super interesting.
Man, that makes me so sad. Like, I wonder if there was any way they could have done a little more to, like, at least appease maybe Joe and Rainbow, and to just give the audience a little more, because, again, I totally get, like, I wonder why they felt it was necessary to, like, lead into Ronan's entrance. Like, what about that scene was so important they had to keep it in that way to make room for Ronan? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that is a little strange. But I think what sucks about it too is it's kind of like, oh no, we get a lot of good John. We get more John and Ford, like tense moments in like the Lost Boys, like that two-parter and stuff. So that'll come up, I think. But it would have been nice if they both got to emote a little more and to kind of be a little more emotional. I feel like John doesn't really get emotional till after he sees Ford's gone, and then he like gets all sad and like depressed and walks off.
He's so guilt-ridden once again. It's just, yeah, his guilt that he couldn't save him or couldn't hold him back, I think. I'm not sure, but I felt like it was kind of a parallel to SG-1 again, to like the pilot of SG-1, where Daniel and Jack lose Sheree and Scara. And it's kind of like he stands in front of the gate looking through it, and that person is gone. And yeah, I thought it was I don't know if it was intentional, but I thought it was a nice parallel.
Yeah, and I think your point was super interesting, the way that John didn't really show that much emotion until Ford left. Like, I feel like they could have used that to make the confrontation sort of mean something. Like, maybe they could have built up throughout the season that Ford felt inferior in the team or something. Like, he felt like maybe he wasn't as important to John or wasn't as important to the mission or whatever, just to make his sort of, you know, you only are chasing me down because I'm stronger than you and I'm better than you now. Things make more sense in an emotional way instead of it being just like, oh, you're nasty now because you have the Wraith enzyme in you, as a sort of, you know, aggression increaser. Yeah, part of me wishes that the rest of the season had more emotional hints so that this sort of confrontation could have meant something more than what it was on the surface.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think it's really interesting that we both, like, all of us were kind of just like wanting more out of this as well too, because it's not like we're like big like Ford hardcore stans, you know. But I think just like rewatching it, you just kind of like really see how like horribly they treated him as a character. They did him so dirty so many times. So many of our episode titles or like our episode descriptions are like us being like, hey, where's Ford? Like, he was given jack shit until honestly like the last like 5 episodes he was finally given some more. I think honestly, if I remember correctly, I feel like we get a lot of what we want more out of this episode for Ford and John, and like Ford's dynamics in The Lost Boys and also Runner as well, because I know there's some really good like John and Ford, and honestly there's some really good like Rodney and Ford in Runner as well, kind of talking. So at least I feel like they kind of redeemed themselves. Like, I'm not happy with how they ended here, but at least they redeemed themselves for season 2, kind of, because they just fumbled his ending. And yeah, so they just never did him justice, basically. But I am excited to see how it all comes together the next time we see him.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and how we were discussing this whole entire season of our show that Ford doesn't really, there's not a character arc for Ford. He doesn't do much. And we can decide to keep this in the episode or not. I didn't want to include it in trivia because it's sort of a downer, but there was a pull quote from I can't remember who, a writer or a director for Atlantis, and they had basically said that Rainbow had approached them saying, you know, I feel like my character, not a lot has been done with my character. Can we do something interesting? And then the writers slash producers or whatever spun this sort of Wraith arc for Ford as something good. And like, yeah, look what we're doing with the character now to him, when really he just became less of a presence on the show. And his arc doesn't really end in a satisfying way for the character at all. So, yeah, just put a bad taste in my mouth to read that. I didn't agree at all. It wasn't a positive thing at all. But okay.
Yeah, they made him a villain. And I mean, villains can be fun, a lot of fun. But he wasn't even, like, he was recurring for 3 more episodes, right? He's in Runner, and then The Lost Boys and The Hive. Is that the second part of The Lost Boys? I'm not sure. And then there's one tiny cameo in season 5. Very sad that he noticed, like, I mean, I can totally understand where he's coming from, like the actor. He's on this amazing show with this, building on this franchise and building a new show, and he's a main character, and he gets nothing to do except walking along on missions. That they didn't really respect that and didn't know what to do with him is just sad. And I also noticed that he doesn't appear a lot in fan fiction, I feel like. So I feel like he's forgotten by a lot of people. I feel like many fan fiction play at a time, or take place in a time when Ronan showed up, but it's not even like an AU where they just keep Ford around or something, or make him come back.
That's so true. And it gets me so pissed because, I just don't think the writers like treated him with respect at all, you know? And the actor didn't deserve that. Like, that's so mean. And I think I saw one time like a behind the scenes video of like him being like, oh my god, look, like I have an action figure. And he was so excited to be in Atlantis. And I'm like, you guys are going to hell for that. You guys are going, hi, like, oh hell no. That is evil. That is actually evil. And again, too, I just think this adds like another layer too, because again, he's also POC, so I think they just have not ever done well with POC characters, and it just makes me think that like this treatment is just continuing, you know, as we go along in this franchise. It's, you know, it happens in Atlantis, it happens in Universe, it happens in SG1, like it just happens. It's tainted, honestly, throughout the franchise. And so it just really sucks that they tried to spin it. And I think, like, going off of what Tor said earlier, like, they really could have, like, it's not even the fact, and Ash said that's too. Doesn't matter that it's, like, a villain arc. Like, they really could have, like, made it something special if they had, like, layered for that insecurity throughout the first season. And then had him show up in season 2. He could have been in those 3 episodes and, like, done his thing. And then maybe he could have shown up again in, like, season 3 or 4. You know, and like actually come back and had a presence, maybe kind of more of like a Todd figure. Like maybe he's like actually working with, or maybe he like, you know, meets up with Michael and then they start working together. Maybe he like stops working with Michael eventually because he's like, oh wait, no, this is wrong. Or eventually someone gets him off the enzyme and he goes home. Like they really could have like resolved his arc. Instead, you know, skipping ahead, they just like are like, oh, he might be dead, he might not be, we'll see him again. Spoiler alert, we don't. So I don't know, I just think it's unnecessary, and it's unnecessarily cruel of how they tried to spin it and how they tried to play it off like, oh look, we're gonna give you this new interesting arc. And it's like, no, you did nothing. The character you'd already mistreated. Yeah. And I think going back to like the fanfic thing too as well, I think it sucks. But the thing is, I also get it, because it's hard, I feel like, people don't really, like, know Ford very well as a character, and so I feel like it's hard to add him into the story where, when you think, like, oh, like, does he even fit here? Like, you have Ronan, you know, so it's kind of like, why would you add him back? No, I think there are ways you can maybe have him. Like, I would love to see an AU where he kind of maybe he just went back to Earth, and maybe he's like at the SGC instead now, or maybe he was like assigned his own team. Maybe he's with on Atlantis. Maybe so he's still around. He could still be like, hey team, but he has his own little group of people that he cares about. Like I don't know. Give Ford justice.
Agree.
Yeah. We'll write him better in our Atlantis AU.
Like you were saying earlier, we give Carson a lot of flack on the show sometimes. But I did appreciate the fact that when Ford was like shooting up the infirmary for Wraith enzyme, he shot at Beckett. He was threatening Beckett with weapon, and Beckett was like, no, I refuse to give you more of this crap that is going to make you worse. And then as soon as Ford points a gun at one of his patients, he's like, okay, fine, here is your enzyme. So that's an interesting character tidbit for Carson, the fact that he would sacrifice himself for a patient. He was sacrificing himself for Ford in that moment where he's like, I'm not going to give you this stuff that's going to make you worse just to save my own skin. And then alternatively, he's not going to sacrifice another patient. So yeah, I thought that was a nice moment. You go, Carson. You're a good person sometimes.
He came back from this mad scientist camp for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, he returns, but he's here for a while. We're like, hey, regular Carson. He's on sabbatical or he's like hiding all of his experiments in the basement right now. At least he's hiding it,
Experiment
though.
on Sora.
No.
Oh no.
Every time someone mentions the basement, I just think of Sora, who's probably still down there.
Oh my god, that is just so funny. I think of Sora, and then I also think of that, like, I think of all the weird shit down there, like the random rooms, like the rituals. Like, she must be, that room must be crazy. She'd be going wild down there.
Oh yeah.
She's probably learned so much more about the ancients than like the expedition ever did. Like, honestly.
This is so unrelated, but when I was watching this episode, I got interested in like the size of ships and everything because they at first it's like, oh, they have the 3 hive ships that they have to destroy, and then they managed that, and then 12 more are on their way. I'm like, okay, how bad is that? And they talk about that in the whole galaxy there are like 60 or at least 60 hive ships, and I was like, okay, how bad is that? And so I looked it up, and I found out that one hive ship is either it fits or it is always accompanied by 3 cruisers, darts, and scout ships. And it's basically a city because it holds tens of thousands of passengers. Tens of thousands in one hive ship. It has a length of 2,500 meters, which is about 1.5 miles, and a width of 1,500 meters, and which is about 1 mile. And oh no, wait, those are the cruisers. So the hive ships are even bigger. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. And then later, I looked up how big is the Daedalus. The Daedalus, it's tiny. It's tiny. Or she's tiny. She has a length of 225 meters, which is like around 740 feet, compared to 1.5 miles of a cruiser. Yeah, so how? Anyways, I just got very interested in like the size of the ships in this episode, and I had to look it up. And we can cut all this, but I thought it was interesting because the hives they are ginormous. It's insane, and they always have this whole entourage of cruisers and darts and scout ships.
No, thank you for looking that up, because I was always kind of confused about like. I feel like I don't know, maybe they did explain it, I'm just an idiot, but I really forgot that like every time that like there's one Wraith ship, there's like, at least 3 cruisers with it or something, or like they're inside it. I don't know what they are, but like when you add that into like one cruiser and all the darts and everything, Yeah, because I think that makes so much more sense. Especially because I feel like when you hear Rodney, yeah, he says like, "Oh, there's at least 60 in this galaxy." I was like, "Girl, it's nothing." But now you are like tens of thousands. Like they did not do the scale of the Wraith ships and everything justice. Because excuse me, the fact they're all mini cities in there. Oh my God,
Yeah.
the lore you
Yeah.
can build on that is amazing.
Right? It's insane. And I was watching I've become the person who watches the episodes and then watches them again with the audio commentary. And they were saying that they think they thought that they got the scale of, or a comparison between the Hive ships and the Daedalus really well. And I'm sorry, but I didn't get it. Like, the Daedalus is really just a fraction of the Hive ships. And I thought we didn't really quite get that. It's more like, I could be totally off here, but I think it would be more like we see the Daedalus landing on Atlantis, and I feel like that would be more a comparison between the Daedalus and a Hive ship. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, they did not do that justice.
No, and then consider like the life support system that would be required to, like, what is the Wraith power source? What do they use instead of ZPMs to power their stuff? Because that's crazy. And how can we repurpose it for Atlantis so we can fly it? Like,
Yeah.
so, right? I mean, okay, we don't get like hyperdrive, but still.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but we know that the Wraith buildings and ships are partly organic, so it's regenerating constantly. That's super cool.
That is
But
interesting.
yeah, they would have something like a ZPM.
Yeah, interesting. It'd be creepy if their power source was like biological and so unethical for like Atlantis to use.
Oh,
Because it would cause so much ethical debate.
oh yeah. I had this, it's not really an idea, but what if like it was powered by, I don't know, the might of a queen or something?
Ooh. It's like the will.
That probably wouldn't work. Yeah, or something like that.
That's kind of cool.
But make them more evil, please.
Yeah. Give me another reason not to like them besides the fact that they make us old.
Yeah. Oh man.
I was just gonna say one thing that I think is uncool about the Hive ship is the sound they make when they're shooting they're shooting lasers at the Daedalus. It's just like pew pew pew. It's like literally pew pew. And I'm like, can't you make it more scary sounding than that? Like,
Kind of like the screaming that the darts make.
Yeah.
make it sound like that. A lot more intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually so true. I'm cracking up just thinking about it because I forgot. They sound so basic. And then their little Wraith darts screaming are like so cool. But why did they decide to just give a little regular pew 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 to these aquatic ass, giant ass vampires? Like, now I'm just thinking about all of them being like in their little Wraith ship and they're like attack and like just hearing the little pew 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 behind them. Like that just makes me so funny.
What if they think that they sound so cool, but they're like, we have those evil space vampires. We're gonna have the most intimidating sounding weapons. I mean, there's no sound in space, but that fact apart. And then they have like a focus group or something, and then they come up with something, and it's just like pew pew, and everybody's perfect.
I'm
This is now
losing it.
canon.
I'm losing it at the concept of a Wraith focus group.
They're like, how do we make ourselves seem scarier? They're like, how do we intimidate people? They're like, because like eating humans isn't enough. They're like, some worlds are getting too brave. They're like, we have to roll up in like the full, like, they were like, okay, long hair. They're like, yes. They're like, full black fits. They're like, yes. They're like, add in some extra little makeup to accentuate your aquatic features.
Pew pew pew.
The pew pew pew.
Don't forget the pew pew pew. That's the cherry on top.
And they're like, oh my god, yeah, now we're the villains. I hate them. They're so annoying.
Clearly. The fact that Atlantis had to do the hide under the couch and pretend you're not home when someone rings the doorbell, basically maneuver on them because they were that persistent and that annoying, just speaks volumes.
You know, I actually really dig, getting back to the plot of this episode that we've lost. No, I actually really dig how they outsmarted the Wraith. I love when Atlantis can pull things off, like, that's, you know, when it's not just action-based, you know, because it is a very action-driven show. Honestly, I make the case all the time that I think it's the most action, quote-unquote, driven show of the three. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. Universe has some action, but I wouldn't say it's, well, maybe Universe as well is up there. Anyways, though, it has a lot of action, and so I appreciate it though when the writers like remember and like take a step back and are like, hey, wait, no, our people are kind of smart, especially because Rodney's so smart, and the fact that John came up with it too though is like so. Because John's smart too. Don't forget, guys. What have we been saying this entire season? They've been planting these little tiny seeds of being like, hey, John is so smart. If you can't see it by now, we've been highlighting all of them. And so I think just in this first season, he really has proved that he's on the same level at times. Maybe not like book smart as like Rodney and stuff, but he's on the level.
I mean, he's the one who comes up with the plan, right? With
yeah.
detonating is it an A-bomb or whatever, like the bomb above, or like faking a self-destruct. I like that they do it, but I thought it was kind of too easy, because while I was watching it, I was like, and they were coming up with a plan, and then I thought, like, before they solved that problem, I thought, but how are they gonna make the Wraith stop from firing? And then Teyla comes up with the idea that she can use her superpowers again and get in contact with the Wraith, and plant the idea that they are going to self-destruct Atlantis into the Wraith. Well, just tell them that that's their plan. And I was like, but she says this sentence something like, yeah, they're not gonna wanna help destroy Atlantis. I know they want the gate, but they are still trying to fucking destroy Atlantis, right? So I thought it was I thought it was a bit too easy that the Wraith just stopped immediately after she told them that they would self-destruct.
Yeah. No, I see your point for sure, and I definitely agree that I have no idea how they would like execute this, but yeah, it would have been nice to see like maybe like one Wraith hive ship stay behind, because I feel like they would most likely like try to like board Atlantis, or like try to like get inside to get the gate, or like really inspect the wreckage and see if they can like salvage anything from the ancients. So yeah, that would have been interesting to see. Maybe like the other ones leave and like one Wraith ship stays behind, and then now like the next episode is them having to deal with how the fuck are they gonna fool these Wraiths? Or like what the fuck do they do? They just kill that one Wraith ship, or like, yeah, what do they do? So that would have been, yeah.
And it would have been an interesting place to sort of insert the seeds of Wraith infighting, where, you know, the one ship that's left behind, maybe they're worried that they're going to communicate that, you know, there are pieces of Atlantis still around, or they're still alive, or whatever, but they don't, because they want to keep the gate to themselves, or they want to keep any sort of ancient technology they find to themselves. So yeah, that would have been interesting too.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. It would have been really cool to maybe like see like them discover that Atlantis is still there, and then we have a Wraith and Elizabeth negotiation session where the Wraith are like, all right, we have to negotiate. Fine, what are you gonna give us so we don't send back the information to the other Wraith? You know, and have to little friendly talks.
That would have been super cool. Any chance that Elizabeth gets to show off her skills, just Perfect.
Literally. And I wonder what they would have had to give up. You know, what would Atlantis have had to give up to convince the Wraith to keep their mouths shut?
True.
Or would they even have trusted the Wraith? Would they just have... I feel like John would have to just be like, all right, we just go kill him. John's like, Elizabeth's in a meeting. I'm going to beam up. He's like, I'm going to beam up to the Wraith ship and just start sneaking around. The Storm Part 2, just sabotaging everything so the Wraith ship crashes on there.
If that would have happened like a treaty, neither side would have trusted the other one. We see that later with Michael, right? I think they try to deceive him and he is deceiving them, so yeah, it would probably be similar.
Okay, one last thing and then we'll actually get back to the plot. Oh, we lost the plot. Girl, where's the plot at? I was gonna say too, it would have been continue on that little funny little what if John and Teyla and Rodney just snuck up on board and we're just doing sabotaging shit on the Wraith ship, and what if they crash the Wraith ship right into the other side of the continent though of North America? Let's say the Athosians are in California. What if they put the Wraith in New York? What if they just left? Like, would they have a prison?
Oh.
That would. Oh, they would. Those bitches would. Oh no.
Interesting.
They would have like a prison camp.
And I was thinking even beyond that, like if they were on a Wraith ship that was crashing, like what if they showed us like their journey home to Atlantis? Like how did they walk back? Like all three of them. Like how did they get back there? Like assuming that
God, yeah.
that Elizabeth thought they were dead or whatever. They had to make it back by themselves.
We were actually robbed of like them not hanging out on the mainland more often. Like, where was their beach episode on the mainland? Like, are you kidding? Anyways, but that's beside the point. But I would love an episode of all four of them. Sorry, I'm gonna add Ronan in here. Sorry, Ford. I know we were just defending you, but I'm gonna add... Sorry, I know we're just like, we need to add Ford. Okay, Ford is back on the base. Okay, he's fine in this version. But like, he's with his team. He's good. With
He has
our
his
team,
own
what
team
if-
now, okay?
Yeah. He's with Cadman. Cadman's on his team. I feel like him and Cadman would have a ball together. They would commit many war crimes. But no, it'd be so funny, like an entire like episode of like them trying to get back to Atlantis, and they just like see it in the distance, and they're just like trekking through North America. It's like all these woods, like camping. They camping.
Rodney would suffer so hard. He would be just a mess and complaining 24/7 or 27/7. I don't know how long days on Atlantis are. Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh my god, I can see like Rodney accidentally, because he's like, I don't have enough mosquito repellent, or it's just some bullshit. And like during the night he gets stung by something, and then in the morning like he wakes up and he like just passes out and he's like, I've been stung. And Ronan's just like, oh thank God. Ronan's so happy. Rodney is quiet. And he's just like bridle carrying him through the forest, like, and Teyla and John are like, that kind of worked out in our favor.
Oh.
John would be a pretty boy too though. He'd be a pretty boy about it. Teyla would have to make all the fire. She'd go fishing for them in the little river.
Yeah.
I think Teyla and Ronan would be totally fine. I mean, Teyla obviously, but also Ronan probably learned a bunch of survival skills. It would be basically a camping trip for them with two whiny boys with them.
Oh my god, I love this. I have to share one tent. Please.
I just imagine Rodney being a super picky eater. Like, they're like digging up bugs and stuff. This is like all they have to eat. And Rodney's like, no, I'm not doing it. And then Ronan is like, it's actually pretty good. And then he's like, oh really? Well, maybe I'll try it. Like he did in in what was it, the tower?
Yes.
Exactly. I love that you mentioned that, because that is one of my favorite parts of their dynamic. Is Rodney will just believe anything Ronan says. It's like, babe, he tricks you all the time. This is his favorite thing to do. His favorite prank is to just be like, Rodney, you should do this. And Rodney's like, oh, wait, really? Ronan, like, just gets Rodney to do just the funniest shit on Atlantis. I know it. Or he's like, you would look good with, like, He's like blue hair. And it's like Rodney's like, oh my god, really?
It would match his shirt.
Well, actually, thank God you said that. Speaking of this episode that we totally forgot about, and his blue shirt, I would like to say once again for the record, Mr. Rodney's titties.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not.
Lord, I was like, girl, he was talking, and I was just like, yeah, no, I'm just not even, it was just mumbling in my ears. I was just like, just a great chest, sir. Just great. Thank you.
It's like they're in the meeting discussing how they're gonna trick the Wraith to think that they blew themselves up, and nobody is listening. They're just all staring.
And no, they're so pronounced in that shirt. Like his boobs walk into the room first, and he walks in like 2 minutes later. Like they're literally so ginormous. Like if he was like resting them on the damn table. I was like,
oh my god. Listen, if I was one of those Wraiths, I would have been too thoroughly distracted to be doing any damage whatsoever.
were you trying to go in and being like, oh wait.
Let me slide into those DMs first before...
Why does Rodney have the best titties on Atlantis? Riddle me this.
Speaking of Rodney, there's this scene. I don't know if it was my sleep-deprived brain, but the scene after the Daedalus arrived and they are safe for once, just for a moment, and they are just, like, talking to the Daedalus, and I think Caldwell says something like, Dr. McKay, I trust you know what to do with this. And then he beams down to Marines. And I was like, with the CPM. The first thing I saw were the two Marines. I was like, he knows what to do with that.
He's been practicing on John.
Sick of all of us. I should rated R this episode. What is this episode? What is this about this episode? The magic of Rodney's titties.
Episode title?
Yeah, yep. I nominate it.
Also, for the record, I would just like to say, I think Ronan would have some... We know Jason Momoa. Thank you, Aquaman. So I know Ronan is second placed for best male titties on Atlantis. For a fact. If they just let him be more slutty, though, he just wasn't slutty enough.
Please! Oh, I need more slutty Ronan.
Lower cut tops for sure.
We got...
Yeah.
I feel like he would be so unaccustomed to just wearing clothes. I was like, he lived in the woods for like 8-10 years. Like, obviously he had clothes to, like, he had, on the run. But I feel like they would have to have like an intervention at one point where he would just like forget to wear shirts. He'd just walk out and John would be like, hey, well, you gotta wear a shirt. You're causing some people are fainting back there, sir. Like, you just forgot to put on pants one time and they'd be like, Ronan, pants!
He's just showing up in to a meeting, just his bathrobe or something, but it's open until like his...
Thinking thoughts right now. Elizabeth too. Elizabeth is like, John, get him out of my sight.
She'd be so distracted. Ooh.
Oh, yes.
And you would try not to, obviously. But oof. Anyways. Rodney in this episode is amazing. I think it's one of the funniest. For me, it's one of the funniest Rodney episodes because he's just constantly running from one problem to the next, and he's trying to. I think he even falls asleep in between for like a few seconds, and then the next problem starts, and he just keeps running, and I don't want to know on how many stimulants he's on right now. He should be dead probably, but he somehow just keeps going. And one of my favorite scenes, and one of my favorite Teyla Rodney scenes is the one. Oh yeah, it's after they managed to raise the shield, and he just lays down on the floor and just wants to sleep. And Teyla is like, "Should I tell the Wraith that you're not available for fight?" And he's like, "Oh, right, okay, never mind." And she helps him up, and I love this scene so much because she's kind of sarcastic, but she also gets it, and it's just so good. Good stuff.
The sibling energy was real in that scene, for sure. But I also sympathize with Rodney a lot because as soon as I finish a task, I also like to lie down and close my eyes for 2 seconds and have a nice power nap. It's too much work. I also thought it was funny at the end of that scene. I don't know if you guys caught it. After Teyla helps him up, he kind of starts patting his leg in his holster for his gun, but he dropped it. So it's not even there. So he can't even help fight any Wraith because he just doesn't have a weapon.
It's so funny. The whole scene before she rescues him in this episode.
He does.
And she calls him brave too. It's just, their dynamic in this episode is I love it so much. And Rodney trying to be brave and trying to fight the Wraith, and it's so funny because in the whole episode, or in the whole Siege Part 2, he's walking around with a P90. And now in Siege Part 3, he's only has his like handgun or something and fails to use it. What happened? Absence of sleep, probably. But yeah, no, it's amazing.
The P90 got confiscated because he was too sleep deprived. They couldn't trust his aim on rapid fire mode.
No, yeah, makes sense.
That's canon. That's canon now. They just take away his gun anytime he's too sleep deprived. They're like, you can do damage. They're like, we don't trust you. But no, I agree. I freaking love, honestly, I feel like this might be the Teyla and Rodney friendship episode.
Agreed.
Besides when he helps her give birth to her baby. I don't think they've ever had so many moments in one episode. But no, it was so good. The sibling energy is so real. And I just, I love when they not baby, but I just love when they treat, like, Rodney like a little prince, like a little spoiled prince that they all have to, like, love and care for. But they actually do love him, but it's just so cute they treat him because, yeah, when Tayla's like, "You're so brave, you did well, Rod," and he's like, "Really?" And he gets so, like, he perks up, and it's like, "Oh, thanks." Like, he gets kind of like, "Ooh, you give me a compliment." Like, they just all, like, know by now, like, that's how you kind of, like, make Rodney feel better after he almost dies. She just gives him a little compliment. And I also wanted to say this is a great Elizabeth and Rodney episode 2. The amount of times we get Rodney just, like, going full off, unhinged, and Elizabeth just being like, "Rodney." Or just giving him a look and then him, like, reeling it back. I really want to make a compilation of every time she says his name when she's reprimanding him, because it's so cute. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great moments. That one where, when he's going down the stairs and he's like, "Okay, you have to protect me." And she's like, and he's like, "Okay, this is VM." And he's like, "Am I wrong?" And he's turning back at her like I'm not wrong. And she's like, she doesn't say anything either because she knows, like, he's not wrong either, but she doesn't want to agree with him. Like, oh, it's so good.
Agreed. Their energy is so great. And then Elizabeth doing the John thing when it comes to Rodney management, and she starts counting down the seconds. She's like, "Rodney, we have 30 seconds. We have 20 seconds to push him to do something." It's so good.
Ah! Yeah.
And then the immediate fondness when he gets the job done, and she's like, "Okay, now you have the day off." You earned it.
Oh.
Except, of course, he doesn't have the day off, but the sentiment counts.
Of course not. Yeah. I felt so bad for Elizabeth, of course. Because she, too, doesn't get a second off from everything. She's working around the clock as well. And Yeah, I just kept thinking how horribly she must have done during this episode. It starts even in the beginning, after they see the hive ship blow up and they think John is dead, and she says he did it, and her voice is kind of breaking or kind of hoarse, and it was like, this poor woman, and I just wrote on, help somebody hug her, please. And yeah, it was and all their faces when they learned that he's not dead, but then a while later, it's just this episode is so emotional for everyone. Everybody keeps thinking that somebody is dead, and in the end, nobody's dead. We lose Ford, but he's not dead. He's still out there.
Yeah, you're so right. It's an emotional roller coaster. Like, it starts on a low, and then it gets high, and then it gets low again because they're like, "Where's Teyla?" And then it gets high again because she's found and she saves Rodney, and then the Ford thing, so it gets low. But then high because we save Atlantis. So yeah, what a roller coaster.
Good, yeah. And oh my gosh. I know we kind of talked about it last week, but I just want to bring it up again. But I love that scene of Rodney first not even believing that John is alive. Like, Caldwell's like, John, no, like, he made it. And Rodney's like, no, he didn't. Like, we saw it, like, he blew up. And, like, he doesn't want to immediately believe it. Like, it hurts again. And then, when he, like, gets up, and he's like, I'm right here. Like,
yeah, that's
some great... like, shit.
The head in his hands, like, defeat. It was really, yeah, it was a lot. And then the tears in his eyes, too. When everything's okay. It was really sweet. I'm not immune. It was like Christmas. His boyfriend's alive, and they brought his ZPM.
I wrote down the same thing.
No!
I legit wrote down like a child on Christmas Eve. We're connected.
Yes.
Oh, man.
We're like the Wraith. We have a hive mind.
Can we be like Teyla? She's cool at least.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to eat us.
True.
People.
True. She uses her powers for good.
Yes. True hero.
Yeah. Which is another thing I particularly liked about that scene. Like, everyone kind of had a role. Like, John was the mastermind of the plan, and then Rodney and Zelenka had to actually execute it, and then Teyla had to help with Carson as support to make sure that the Wraith, So, yeah.
Yeah, that scene where she goes connect with the hive mind again was so scary, because there's like a tiny moment when she sits up again, and and she has this undistinguishable look on her face, and you don't know, did it work? The Wraith just take her over again, or did she actually do it? And then we learned that she did it, but it was like, what if they trick her or the others and just take her over and make her say that she did it, but actually she didn't? It's, again, I've watched this episode so many times. It still manages to fool me every time. Where I have these doubts. Is it working? Okay, it's working.
And that's to speak to how well they build the tension in this episode, really. That it holds up on rewatch.
Yeah.
But I really liked that Teyla had a moment to be proud of what she did. Like, I like her little smile at the end when she tells him that she did it. It's like, oh, yay, Teyla, you did it.
Oh, I'm so happy she took her first step in, mastering her superpowers.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I love that, the gift, it's like, yeah. No, she had this whole episode about this. First of all, learning on where her abilities come from, and then even strengthening them. And now I guess there happened a lot in between those episodes, but she accepted it, and now she uses it for their advantage even more than they did before, and it's cool that they gave her that and don't forget about it immediately. So I think it's a good setup. And it didn't come just out of nowhere because we had this episode. They didn't forget about it right away.
Yeah, that's true. As much as I wish they did more emotionally with her in terms of that storyline, I appreciated that they knew. They're like, okay, yes, we want to set up her power so that we can involve her in the whole plan, and it's going to be a cool thing. And it was a cool thing.
Yeah, I feel like everyone kind of tied in to like their own little like season long or like mini arcs that they had, you know. Except I would say for maybe obviously Ford. And I think Elizabeth maybe as well. I don't know if she gets a full arc thing. She's kind of always, I don't know, I do kind of wish that maybe they had set up more of like, I don't know, maybe not insecurity, but maybe like her struggles in the beginning of as a leader, you know, and maybe like we see, this doesn't have to be like her, just like her struggling maybe with like, it's not like she's a leader, you know, and she is amazing at it, but I like to see her maybe grow more, you know. So at the end of the season, when, you know, she says these speeches and she, you know, she does these things, she's like leading and taking charge of everything, it's more of like an emotional hit, like, oh yes, she's fun, she's there now, she's there, she's got it. Because I do think problem with, you know, Elizabeth in Atlantis, out of all the main characters, again, she just doesn't really get Everett like a main arc per se. I think we get maybe like, or I'm kind of blanking, but maybe we get like a little bit of some things in season 3, right? With like the ancients, I don't know.
With the nanites, I'd say that's her arc, but it's also her downfall. So, hello.
Yeah, so I do think that sucks that we didn't get to have that for Elizabeth, because I think it would have hit all the more to see her kind of like rise up and just like absolutely just rock at what she did during these episodes and just as a leader. But everyone else, though, at least got some sort of resolution. Speaking of the resolution, let's talk about John. Mr. Good old John. And Mr. Colonel Everett, or whatever his name is.
Oh.
Right.
That scene hurt me.
Yep. I took it personally.
Oh, man. There's
so much to say. And
yeah.
I think it says a lot about John's character. Like, not him as a character, but, like, his character. Where when Everett's like, I owe you an apology, John is like, no, you really don't. He's a nice guy. And I think he has a hard job. And so I feel like he has a lot of self-doubt and, like, am I making the right choice? I say this all the time, but I feel like he never wanted to have this leadership position and this position of power over people and this position of responsibility. And so, of course, he's mentioned it in the previous episode, like was up nights thinking about the choice that he made to save Sumner the way that he did. And so it's nice to see a peek behind the sort of I don't care about anything facade and see that, no, he does have insecurity there and doubts. And he really is like a genuinely nice person. I thought that the salute, as military as it was really a kindness on John's part. Like, we never see John stand on ceremony very much, besides, like, you know, respectfully calling Sam Colonel because he respects her and the work that she did with SG-1 when she joins Atlantis. And so to see him sort of do that, which you've never really seen before, for this man who was not very kind to him and totally spoke out of turn and did not deserve the respect that he was showing him in that moment, it was really nice to see that sort of forgiveness come from John.
Wow. You nailed that.
I have a lot of feelings about this.
So wow. No, you said that literally so well. Like, Yeah, I don't. Okay. Okay. Yeah. What do I say to like, jump on top of that? Um, I really like sort of like the little like character moments too. Like whenever it says like, oh, like he wished John had killed him, and John immediately just starts deflecting, and he's like, no, you're fine, or like you're gonna be okay, and like he's trying to say he just king of deflecting. There you go, sir. Um, and like the way like he says that, and then he like once he realizes that like Everett's like being serious and just gonna like keep on saying it, he just kind of like is like, all right, fine. He lets it go and he like does a little giant salute thing, um, which is so hurts and it hurts so much. And when John's face whenever it says that he owes him an apology, has anyone ever apologized to this man? Has any of like his commanding officers slash like father figures have they ever tried to apologize to him? Because he's so astounded. He's like, what? Yeah, no, that killed me.
That poor man.
I like that you mentioned the deflection, like he was trying to deflect in the beginning and then he kind of just let it happen. So I feel like he realized in that moment, okay, like he needs this. And so like he needs to get this out. And so even if it makes me feel uncomfortable and I don't like it and I don't want to hear it, I'm going to let it happen so that he can live however long he has left in peace. And John, why are you like this? It hurts me. It hurts me inside.
Yeah. And it's such a nice resolution kind of to like his whole, I don't know about season maybe, but I guess you can say season long arc of I think him kind of growing into this commanding officer role that he didn't want. It was just thrust upon him. It was so good. It was so good. Especially after freaking Everett was on his ass last week.
That's true. It is a kind of nice full circle. Like we had the killing of Sumner in the pilot and now I don't want to say that he feels absolved of guilt. I think it's always going to be on his conscience, but there's a sort of resolution in the sense that someone who is in the same position has told him, like, I kind of wish that you were there to do it for me. So it eases the pain, I think, a little bit to hear something like that, for sure.
Yeah, especially because, you know, Everett was such like a close friend of Sumner's, I think as well. And he was so like literally like telling him off last episode and being like, I'm gonna talk to you about this because I'm sure like what you did in that moment was wrong. Like, how could you have like made that choice for him? Like, that wasn't your choice to make. All up on him, and then once it did happen to him, he was like, oh, he was gagged a bit. He was real quiet there, sir. Real quiet. And the salute too. Sorry, we're just okay. Last thing about it, the salute to, everything about it. Like, say what you want, but Joe's a really good actor. Joe kind of ate this role up, I fear. He kind of ate this role.
Yeah, it was recently that I saw a post about something like, yeah, I don't get why people say Joe Flanagan is a bad actor. And I was like, people are saying that? Really? I don't really agree with a lot of what Joe does, but he's not a bad actor. And I can't say for other roles because I haven't seen him in anything else. But especially in that scene with Everett, but not only in that one, just his facial expressions, there was so much acting going on, and he was just standing there. I don't get how people can say that he's a bad actor.
I love that you brought that up because, you know, when they were trying to get the shield up, they weren't sure if they were going to get the shield up in time, and he was still on the Daedalus. His face when he found out that they were okay and he heard Elizabeth say, you know, we're fine, like, we got the shield up, we're still here. The subtlety of acting, the micro expressions are great. And it really carries the character, I feel like, because on paper, John Sheppard can be sort of dry or like we've seen him before and a little bit two-bit, but I think Joe brings a lot of nuance to him and kind of makes him a little eccentric, a little more just interesting through his physical acting.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that scene so much. John is so concerned for his team. He's genuinely so scared for them. And I think something that's so sweet that I noticed too is how often they call Atlantis home this episode. Like at least they mentioned it 2 or 3 times. You know, and there's a little scene where Elizabeth's like, "Oh, we're gonna keep the porch light on you." Like, it's so cute, and I love that. Like, especially after like John's like almost death, you know, that like they're just more willing to be like, "This is our home. You're a part of our home." Like, it's a little bit easier for all of them to say some of the things they've been hiding, I think, which I love. And again, I just love the mom and dad vibes of John and Elizabeth this episode were strong.
They were.
The parents of Atlantis for real.
Okay, it's interesting that you bring them up because I was going to next. Because when John returns from the Daedalus, he also says, "I'm home." And he kind of looks around, and it's so cute. And this whole scene, Elizabeth walking down the stairs towards him, I don't care what you say. It's fucking shippy to me. To me, it's so fucking shippy. This episode, this scene, I feel like it's, I'm seeing your face, but I don't care.
I don't either. I just don't see it as shippy, but I don't mind.
To me, it's so fucking shippy. She's, okay, I mean, just the way she walks up to him and she stops so close to him and they just stare at each other for I don't know how long, and then she hugs him, and John, being as emotionally constipated as he is, doesn't know what to do. He's just confused as fuck. But then he kind of hugs her back and kind of pets her back a bit, and God, I think it's adorable. And then the whole exchange after that, to the whole, we gotta stop assuming the other is dead. It kills me. It kills me every time. I thought I was over the ship. I'm not. And I think it's mostly this scene maybe, but also the last scene where she also is she's trying to comfort him and he's just being all emo again. But yeah, and they are in the hugging scene. First of all, I love that Elizabeth is a hugger. I love that about her, and I think it's the first time we see it, that she hugs people on her team, and it's so cute, and they are so smiley for like 10 seconds, and then they go back to business, and to me it's fucking shippy, and I love it, and yeah, that's it. I wanted to get that out of the way.
No, I love John's reaction to physical affection. It's like a continuing thread in the show, which I like that they carried on. He's very like, what is happening? I've never had a hug before in my life. It's great. He doesn't know where to put his hands. He's really awkward. And I like that a lot. It's very cute. It's very endearing to me.
Yeah, it is.
No, yeah, they have some really great moments this episode. I freaking love it. Again, I just love the mom and dad vibes of the team. They're so I love when they go all mom and dad on the base. It's so cute. Oh my god, we have to talk about freaking Hermiod.
Novak.
Best.
Yeah.
Yes. I love Novak. She's so cute. I love when they pop up together because he's just the best. I mean, he's up there with Thor for me. Like, Thor is just like adorable, right? But he's so fucking sassy. He is so sassy. And I love it. He is sick of humans. He is so pissed that he got put on Daedalus duty. And I would love to know what he did to deserve this punishment. Why did they send him on the Daedalus? What did he do that was so wrong?
Because we all know it's a punishment.
We all know it's a punishment. He got assigned to the humans, and he was pissed. And he's just been angry since day one. He stepped on Daedalus, not having it.
And I love how Novak picks up on all of that. Like, he's not being very subtle. He's just pissed the whole time, and she knows it, and she tries to convey that to the rest of basically mostly to Caldwell, but he doesn't care. But she always tries to kind of appease him and kind of to navigate the relationship between the orders and what they can do and what they should do, and also tries to see it from Hermiod's point of view. but she can't really do it because Caldwell doesn't care and she has to follow orders. But it's every scene with them is, I think it's one of my favorite scenes because it's always so funny. It's so funny. There's this one scene where she asks if 5 seconds are enough for like beaming it over or something. But they have like a countdown, and she asks, "Is that enough?" And he's like, "Yeah, obviously." Why do you question my abilities? Something like that. And then she starts to count down. It's like 5, and she beams it away, and that's it. And she's like, "Oh, okay, bomb is away," or something like that. And it's just, it's so funny. I love her. And they haven't started her hiccups yet.
I guess it's only when she's nervous, maybe?
But why wasn't she nervous during this mission?
Yeah, that's true. It's funny because I feel like Caldwell is so indifferent to Hermiod's feeling that he doesn't care that Hermione is mad or whatever. But if Caldwell was in Novak's place and had to like do the translating and do like be in the room with Hermione, like he would be scared shitless. He would be very afraid. He would be quaking in his boots. Trust.
He would. Yeah. That's probably why he stays on the bridge. He doesn't want to face Hermione because he's just afraid. So he sends Novak because he knows she can handle it.
Exactly. Hermione's bitchiness has a calming effect on her. It feels like home. It's comfort.
Oh.
I was say though, that's interesting you brought up her coughing thing or her like hiccuping thing because I forgot about that. But didn't it first appear in Prometheus Unbound?
Yeah,
right?
She used to be part of the Prometheus crew. Actually, I think. Pretty sure.
Yeah, because that's in season 8 of SG1. Wouldn't it technically be after? So I guess maybe like she did get eventually a hold of her hiccups. Maybe that's why. It's because
it comes back. I think.
Oh,
it comes back. It definitely comes back.
I think so. Yeah.
In Atlantis or SG1?
No, in Atlantis, it's during the she's being interrogated by Elizabeth, and she just has this hiccup, and yeah.
So interesting.
Maybe she was too focused during this.
Maybe that's just so funny to me then, because it's just like, damn, they couldn't even. It's not the fact that she's inconsistent in both SG1 and Atlantis. It's also the fact that she's inconsistent in Atlantis too.
Yeah.
Oops.
That is so funny.
No, this actress is amazing. Like, speaking of acting, she's just, her facial expressions, they kill me. It's just, oh.
It's half of the
She
comedy
brings
right
so
there.
much to this. Yeah, it really is. I love her. She's probably one of my favorite background or minor characters. Because she's just one of the funniest characters.
It's funny, we didn't mention at the top of the episode, this is Caldwell's first appearance.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sam, do you have anything to say about Caldwell? By any chance?
I mean, he's just another military leader.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it's not that I don't mind him per se, but I think we'll see. Because I keep forgetting. This is technically season 2. We're technically watching season 2 already.
Yep.
But like we'll see later on this episode or this season, you know, he kind of gets into it with Elizabeth on many occasions, and I don't know. He's not like he doesn't piss me off too much. He does kind of drive me a little crazy sometimes, but I don't know. I just feel like he comes for this season. Like he's only in season 2, and then he dips out, and we never see him in like season 3 or 4 or 5, really. Or like I think he is in season 3 for a little bit, but he's definitely not in 4 or 5. Maybe he's in 4 actually. But like I feel like he gets a lot of episodes this season, and then like we never spend this much time with him again.
That's true.
And so he's a weird character that I think that like I'm not sure what they were trying to do necessarily with him. That's why I'm a little conflicted, but I'm excited to rewatch it and to get some more insight because I wonder if they just brought him on to be like a enemy in Elizabeth's path or something. I don't know. I feel like they could have done more. They could have made him a lot more interesting, I think. And I think part of my, not resentment, part of my a little bit of just indifference and like dislike is also just kind of ties into what season 2 does with the whole Earth thing. We'll talk about it with the next episode, which is Intruder, because that is an episode I have so much beef with. Not because it's bad. No, not because it's bad. Just because like I just dislike so many decisions that are being made right off the bat. But yeah, so I just think I have more of a indifference / dislike because I think he represents a lot of my issues with season 2 and what they did with the lore and the canon.
That's very interesting, and I can totally see that. I can totally see your point. But I thought this episode was interesting to me because I also was more on the anti Caldwell side, and because he gets he bumps head with Elizabeth so many times, and because he's just an ass towards her and John especially. So that was just some stuff that he does, especially in conversion, and it was just not okay. But maybe it was because I was watching X-Files before I started rewatching this one, before I started rewatching Atlantis. But I kind of liked him the way he was introduced. First of all, I know we talked a lot about Daedalus being introduced too early to the show, but it was still fucking cool. Like, the shot of the Daedalus, it was amazing. And she did a good job. So, yeah, and I feel like in this episode, Caldwell is more moderate. And yes, he is a military leader, but he respects Elizabeth and doesn't question her, or there's one tiny moment where either he asks for her okay or something, but he acknowledges her and acknowledges her leadership and her role in Atlantis, and I appreciated that because so many other military leaders have not done that. So yeah, I kind of liked it, and I like the dynamic Caldwell and Elizabeth have. I think it's very interesting, and yes, it's kind of antagonistic, but they are also kind of teasing each other, and I think especially, we will talk about that, but especially later in the season, I feel like he's trying to prove himself to her, and I don't know, I think that's a nice change of pace maybe for Elizabeth.
100%. This is definitely one of his best episodes. Because he's just there. He's just doing his thing. He's not complaining. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll go along with you guys' plan. Yeah, I'll go on your suicide mission, John.
It was interesting that you mentioned that you thought maybe Caldwell was introduced as a sort of foil or obstacle for Elizabeth and an antagonistic figure sort of in John's whole world as the military leader in Atlantis, because I was reading up on the episode, as we do here at Jumping Puddles, and I saw or read that in the original script, Everett was supposed to be a recurring character. He was supposed to kind of stay and be a presence in Atlantis along with 2 of the Marines that he had brought with him. They were going to have names. I think Farrell and Radner. And then, of course, what happened to Everett kind of got written off of the show. So maybe Caldwell, they kind of tried to combine what they were trying to do with Everett with Caldwell a little bit, in the sense of like him trying to take John's spot on Atlantis, shirking Elizabeth's authority a little bit, which we'll see later.
That's super interesting.
It would have been a kind of universe scenario, I feel like, if Everett had stayed and been recurring, which is kind of interesting. Different vibes for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Me too.
I think what we have with Caldwell, I think I don't mind him as much this time around, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's kind of nice to have a military man not introduced as an asshole right from the bat, as they do a lot.
Yeah.
Like with authority people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it works for Universe, and I'm happy that they placed that storyline in Universe, because I think that's what kind of made it so interesting, especially in the beginning, where like you think we're gonna have Matt, aka like the new John Sheppard, kind of like the young guy lead the crew of the Destiny, and then it's like, surprise, the commanding officer actually did make a recovery. He's not dead yet. So you have like that, that him back on top, and then Matt becoming kind of like more of a second. So that works for Atlantis. I think it's really cool. But yeah, no, I think it would have been a bad move to have, especially like the military. Like I think it's different, or like maybe not military because Caldwell's also military, but maybe just like the more antagonistic version of Everett. I don't think it really would have worked with him constantly like undermining Elizabeth and John. Like at least Caldwell kind of does it like sneakily, or he does it like in a nice kind of like he'll do it to your face. I feel like Everett would just kind of be doing shit behind everyone's back and like causing problems and like causing a riot, revolution up in here that no one wants. Yeah, so that could have gone. Excuse me, it's not really the drama I'd want to see necessarily. But it's interesting though that they tried that.
Agreed. And although there are moments where like Caldwell tries to be like, well, this is a military situation, I feel like he's so far removed, like him having his own command on the Daedalus, and him not being a constant presence in Atlantis. Elizabeth and John's kind of attitude of we don't have to listen to anything this guy says, like whatever, sort of helps make his whole presence less of like a militaristic, authoritative, like downer on Atlantis, because we always talk about how we feel like Atlantis is so fresh because it's more of a civilian-led. Of course, there is military yuckiness, but it's more of a civilian-led expedition, and we have less of the ties to the military that, say, something like SG-1 does. So it kind of leads to different kinds of stories. So that's good in the sense that I think they made the right choice. Having someone that we don't really have to listen to being the overarching obstacle. It's not really an obstacle and more of an annoyance to the team.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that little scene of Rodney and Zelenka when they're at the end and they're the little everyone's in the meeting and John brings up the idea and so Rodney and Zelenka start like going at it, blah blah blah, and it's like, how long do you need? And it's like a couple hours, and Zelenka's like, a week. And I was just like, I'll take Rodney's answer, right? And they get up and they have the funniest line. Rodney goes, "What are you, union?" It's like it's just like a few hours, like he's crazy. And oh my god, season 1, Rodney, I am gonna miss you so much. I am so scared for as we go further into the show to see his character kind of devolve. But season 1, Rodney, he will always be famous. He is yes. So cute, so funny. This is some of his best episodes honestly, in the entire, this episode. And yeah, again, it's just the little moments with him that are just so hilarious.
Rodney, overworked, underpaid, and still thriving.
With the little nail emoji, that's the vibe.
Yup. Even his sort of like reaction to Caldwell, like, oh, not another military dipshit that I have to explain things to. It's so good. It's a city, not a yo-yo. Iconic. Iconic.
He has some great singers this episode. I mean, he's like funny and like still snarky, but like still serious. And I think that's what I love, is that he still has a very serious energy about him, where he's not super goofy. That comes about, I think, a little later. But I like that he can just say these with like a full like straight face, and it's hilarious.
But speaking of Zelenka, we had some really nice, one really nice Chuck, Zelenka, and Beckett moment. And I like when we have these like side character solidarity things where like Chuck is frantically looking for the groups of missing Marines and Teyla, and Zelenka and Beckett are working on something at another table in the gate room. They just look at each other and they like nod. We're working together, we're gonna figure it out. Don't worry, we got this. I just love that. It's really nice to see these characters have relationships with each other without dialogue.
I love that scene. It's so cute. It's like 2 seconds and then it's gone already. But it's, yeah. And I do have something to add. Another poor Radek in the end of the episode. he gets punched by Ford, just unconscious. But it's also so funny because he's walking out of the jumper and Ford just punches him in the face and his hair kind of flips. And then he goes down. Poor man.
I cannot forgive that. Ford, how dare you punch Zelenka?
I know, like how it was also so funny.
We're like, you can choke Carson, but I draw the line at Zelenka.
We're so mean.
Our bias
so
is showing.
mean.
Our bias is showing. We were like, oh yeah, that sucks for Carson, but Zelenka?
Nah.
Ford, we can't. That's the line. We can't forgive him.
Nope.
Chris, I did a little mention. There's some really great moments, like beautiful shots in this episode. I feel like this one more than anything. I feel like there was some good ones last episode, but there's some like cinematic, like stunning, like when they drop the bomb over the shield and like it goes up in like this red mushroom cloud. So good. And when the Daedalus jumps into hyperspace with all the 12 like hive ships like chasing after it. Really good. And of course, that iconic shot of Shep underneath the bombardment of the shield. They like this episode. So gorgeous. They really went off with it.
What is it with Atlantis that it's so beautiful when she's under attack?
Yeah.
That is so true.
There's something so romantic about having the shields up and bombs falling.
Yeah, that must be it.
And the last thing I just wanted to mention, fucking John, I hate his ass. He's so unserious. He's the most unserious ass. Literally, he's in the hallway with Ford, and like Ford turns around and he's like, "I could have shot you at any time." And it's supposed to be like this, like he's he's like threatening, this big like he's drugged up and all this stuff. And John just goes, "Well, I'm glad you didn't," or something like that. And I'm like, he's the most unserious ass. Like, girl, please take anything seriously. He's so funny. I love his ability to just, obviously he can be serious, but it's just funny that his magical capabilities just to turn any situation into like something that is not actually life-threatening. It's a talent, truly.
That deflecting is at peak. Speaking of John, there was one line that he said that I really enjoyed. I think Caldwell was expressing incredulousness at a piece of information that Rodney had somehow known, and John was like, "I've just learned to trust Rodney about these things. He just takes it on his word. He like doesn't even." He's like, "Oh, Rodney said it must be true," which I love. I like that. Aww. We've come, like, okay, now we have the trust. The trust is built in each other, and it's not even a conscious thing anymore. We just run on each other's word, which is great. Oh, and can I just say, Rodney's anti-radiation goggles were the cutest thing I've ever seen. He was so cute. Styling.
He's so, okay, dork. I love him.
Giant dork. And then he's whispering. He's whispering in that scene. And again, I was watching the audio commentary, and the writer said, I forgot again who it was, but he was like, the reason why this scene happened that way was because when he was writing, he was talking to himself. That's how he writes. He's just talking to himself, like all the characters, and he was whispering for some reason, and he thought, how stupid, and then he wrote that in, and he made Elizabeth ask, why are you whispering? It just seemed like the right thing to do.
That's so cute. Oh my god, I love that. I think we finally... Jeez, how long is this episode? We've been recording for like 2 hours.
Yeah, pretty much. Wow, you're good. It was like 1 hour and 50 minutes, and we are not done yet.
We're not done yet. We are not done yet. We are incapable of stopping. So, up first is Ash with the Bechdel test.
Yes. This episode passes.
Woot.
I forgot where, but it does. My brain is a goldfish.
Stop.
Oh, I think it might have been
Wait,
when Elizabeth and Teyla were talking about something in her office, right? I think.
Yeah.
Before Ford interrupts
Yeah.
rudely.
Yes, that's the scene. Yeah, they're talking about the Wraith or something, but I let that pass because they're talking like about a group. So yes, that's it. Thank you, Tor.
I got you.
It's their one scene, but it's beautiful.
My Teyla radar was pinging.
I think it's in my edit, but I'm not sure.
Ooh!
Ooh, I know. Well, co-leaders of Atlantis. I love when they get to show off their little co-leaders of Atlantis vibes, and it's so
Yes.
co-leader where they're both just like debriefing in her office. It's so like mom too, because like Ford comes in, he's like, "Mom, I don't feel well." And they're like, "Ford, go back to bed, sweetie."
Oh yeah.
And Rodney's like their middle, or their Rodney's the older child who's just like staring at Ford like, "What's going on, Mom?"
Like, please don't be
John's the
sick in
middle
here.
child. Yeah. He's like, "Don't throw up in here. I'm gonna throw up too."
Exactly. Oh,
Daedalus,
I
let's go
know
back to bed.
for a fact that Rodney has a sympathetic gag reflex. Like, as soon as
Yeah.
someone else is gagging, he's gagging. I'm
Yeah.
right with them.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
Yep, I just know it.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Someone write that into fake for ecology, and that's why he can't go to frat parties. Because everyone's throwing up, and he's like, "I can't." And they're like, "John's gonna be there." He's like, "Oh my god, please don't make me do this." He goes in like a full like bags on his side, like a full on like he's ready, like prepared. He's got some hand sanitizer too. Nice. Well, hey, it passed. It's good start for season 2.
Yes. Very good.
Right foot.
And then we have Miss Tor for the behind the scenes.
Ooh, lots of stuff. I don't know if we're going to keep all of it, but I have a nice quote here from Tori. She did an interview about season 2 and the season 2 starter. And she says, and I quote, "Having the Daedalus around has also changed the situation on Atlantis. Last year, we had a real Lord of the Flies type vibe going on because our characters didn't have anyone watching over them. They were in their own self-contained world struggling to survive against evil outside forces and didn't have to justify their choices to any government or other Big Brother. This season, Big Brother is involved. They don't have immediate control over Atlantis, but are represented by Colonel Caldwell, who is able to fly back and forth between Earth and the Pegasus Galaxy. As a result, Dr. Weir is much more protective now. Atlantis is her nest, and she has to safeguard her people, as well as their way of doing things. She doesn't want to compromise what they've learned and established just to please the politicians back on Earth. Of course, this has created conflict between my character and Mitch's, and the two of us are having a ball playing the just who's in charge here dynamic." So thank you, Tori, for validating everything we've ever said on Coming Puddles podcast.
Oh, she really did. Oh my gosh. I
In
really
case you
love the way she kind of broke it down. Oh, sorry. Like, she really broke it down in the perfect way. Like, the Lord of the Flies, like, kind of vibes of season one. And then, like, the Big Brother, like, is looming over your head, season 2. Like, that's so fun that she used it like that to describe it.
Yeah. In case you didn't know, I love Tori Higgins. Perfect. It just makes it even better.
Rightfully so. What else do we have? For more of the trivia, in this episode, 4 hive ships were destroyed by nuclear warheads. 1 through delivery from a cloaked puddle jumper, and 3 from Asgard weaving technology. This brings the total to 5 since the expedition arrived in the galaxy. So that's pretty good. 5 hive ships?
Nice. Yeah.
Not bad.
5 of 60, if we still set on the 60
True.
across the galaxy. Not bad, not bad.
Hermiod's native Asgard tongue is produced by a simple reversal of an audio track. So when played backwards, the little grumbling he does after speaking to Novak is, "When will these humans learn there are consequences to action?"
No, I love that.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
I like that it was actual dialogue that they just workshopped. That's pretty cool.
That makes all of his voice lines better. Because we know what he's really saying. He's really talking shit. It's not, we don't have to guess.
He should meet up with Radek.
Oh,
honestly.
yes.
They could be like muttering about these incompetent people together.
The energy between the two.
I'm being so serious when I say I genuinely think he would just show up and hang out in Zelenka's bar every time he comes back from the dead list. He's like, gotta go see my buddy Zelenka. And they just hang out in the bar and talk and complain about all their problems, which is mostly just Rodney.
Exactly, they talk shit about Rodney all the time together. That's like their thing. That's how they bond. This is the first appearance of the Daedalus class battlecruiser, specifically the first ship of the class, the Daedalus itself. It was first mentioned in the Stargate SG-1 episode Mobius, Part 1, which also included a brief image of its schematics. These schematics, which incorrectly show a Prometheus-like design, are shown on the Daedalus a number of times throughout this episode, including the bridge and Hermiod's workstation. According to Lieutenant Aidan Ford's watch, the battle against his men and the Wraith on the catwalk took place at 5:47 p.m. It's a little interesting detail.
That's such a random fact, but I love it.
They wanted to get the sunset behind them
Fair.
for the dramatic.
Yeah.
They needed the lighting.
You need the atmosphere. Colonel Stephen Caldwell uses an IFF code to identify the Daedalus to Atlantis. IFF stands for Identification, Friend, or Foe, which allows for an entity to distinguish friend and foe targets. According to a screen on Atlantis, the Daedalus IFF code may be 09XR3. So you can use that in your fix if you so desire. Interestingly, Ford escapes in a puddle jumper at the end of the episode, and at first, this seems unlikely due to the fact that it is stated in Hot Zone that he has not received the Ancient Technology Activation or ATA gene. Not possessing the gene should have made flying the ship impossible. However, Martin Giro confirmed in a Gate World interview that one doesn't need the gene to activate the gate and tap in the coordinates. The jumper will just kind of go on autopilot through the gate on Atlantis, and then once you're through the gate, will deactivate, forcing you to abandon it and then redial without it.
He's also sitting in, like, he's not sitting in the driver's seat.
Oh.
Yeah.
So maybe they did that deliberately, so they were like, we know he can't fly it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Little details. Because then John, in the episode, he mentions too, he's like, oh, like, doesn't matter if we try to, like, redial or something. Or maybe Elizabeth mentions it, because they're like, oh, well, he's just going to jump ship and go to the next planet.
And then according to the audio commentary, Ford's transformed eye that was black was actually intended to be white, but they changed it to avoid it appearing too similar to the Ori, the Priors in particular. And also according to the audio commentary, the cup that Ford throws, if you look really closely, you can tell, is actually CGI because they didn't want the actor to get hurt because he got brained right in the head with the cup, so...
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I did rewatch it, and I didn't catch it, actually. I feel I need to maybe watch, like, the HD version or something.
Yeah, it's a convincing throw and impact, although the impact is a little dramatized, but the cup itself is very clearly not a cup.
Oh, okay.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I gotta go back.
I'll try to send you guys a screenshot so you can see. Oh, and like we mentioned in the episode, Mitch Pileggi, who plays Colonel Stephen Caldwell, is best known for playing our favorite FBI Assistant Director, Walter Skinner from The X-Files.
Whoop whoop, Papa Skinner.
Yes! We love and appreciate Skinner in this house. Maybe not so much Caldwell, but Skinner for sure.
Yes.
Well, too, isn't Sumner also in X-Files?
Yes.
He
he's
is.
in season 9? Is it just season 9 or season 8?
Ron Blecker plays a nameless Marine in this episode, and he's actually the show's military advisor. And he was also an airman in the Stargate SG-1 episode, Lost City, Part 1. Similarly, Kirby Morrow, who played Captain Dave Kleinman in this episode, not actually named, just in the script named, previously played Militia Man, I say in air quotations, in the Stargate SG-1 episode Korai, and Turok in The Warrior.
Oh man. Those are like seasons apart.
Yeah.
But he kept coming back for more.
You won't recognize him. It's been too long. Let's just bring him back. And there's another cameo, too. Nicholas Barrick, who plays some nameless Marine, previously played Lieutenant Jonathan Reed in the Stargate SG-1 episode A Matter of Time, a SF guard in Ergo, SG-4 Soldier 2 in Metamorphosis. He was on SG-4!
Wow!
Pennell in Orpheus, and Enemy Mine. So he was in a lot of episodes as just random military person.
They just keep recycling actors like crazy in Stargate.
We also have some goofs in this episode. When the Daedalus is being fired upon, you can actually see the reflection of the spotlights that are being used to mimic the weapons fire on the ship behind Colonel Caldwell's chair on the bridge. And they actually make a comment on it in the audio commentary, and they realized it, and for future battles on the Daedalus ships, they stage it in a certain way to avoid the reflection. So they learned.
Oh.
They learned from their mistake. Also, after Novak says Hermiod won't be happy with the request to modify the Asgard beam transporter, you can actually see the person who's puppeteering Hermiod. Like, you can see their arm.
Oh no!
Yeah, oops.
Oops.
That's always fun, though, because I like practical effects. So having someone actually puppeteer, that's cool. And now applying real-world science to Stargate, which is always a good time. Detonating a nuclear device of 20 megaton capacity in the lower atmosphere of a planet would irradiate a huge portion of that planet. The atmosphere and probably the landmass as well. So, like, fuck the Athosians, I guess, because we're destroying the environment. And also killing you.
Oh my god.
With radiation. Oops.
Side note, what did they do with the Athosians? Did they leave them on the mainland during the attack?
I hope not.
I like to think they
I know.
evacuated them, right? Like off planet? Or are they just... yeah.
Well, technically, they were in the Siege Part 2. So they all came to Atlantis to, like, help fight off the Wraith. But I don't know where they went after that. If they were still on Atlantis, if they went to the Alpha site, no clue.
No, they are all in Atlantis and they are all on the Alpha side and they are safe.
Remember the Athosians, guys? Remember?
That's gonna be a running joke in this podcast. Just us being like, hey, knock knock, hey, remember the Athosians? That, like, civilization you guys, like, kind of kidnapped?
But we did see them a bit more than I expected. Like, not a lot, but they mentioned them several times, and sometimes we see them just hanging around in Atlantis. Not all of them, obviously, but a few of them. So
Yeah.
there's some contact with them. They didn't completely forget about them yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah.
I don't know about season 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they
We
did
are
an
in
okay
season 2,
job
but
for
about the
season
rest.
one. Yeah. They did an okay job for season 1. But, yeah, we'll see upcoming season.
Yikes. Yeah, but that's it for that very long season opener trivia. My apologies.
No, don't. It was very interesting.
Oh, we learned a lot.
Some good stuff there.
Ooh, okay, well, thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Jumping Puddles podcast. Really quick, let's just go around and give her a quick little summary score. I'll start. I think I'll just say 10.
Wow.
I don't know. It just, the tension it hits every time. And I think the build up to those past, the past 2 episodes and like the entire season just really hits home. This episode is never boring. I feel like it's one that you can just put on, you'll rewatch, and you'll love it every time. And there's something for everyone. Emotional, all the dynamics get a good little moment. Yeah, so can't really complain.
I give it a 9 out of 10 because for me it didn't quite hold up to Siege Part 2. For Siege Part 2, I was at the edge of my seat the whole time, and I wasn't this time. I don't exactly know why. But yeah, it was just it didn't catch me as much. I still like it. I think it's a great episode, and under different circumstances, I would probably give it a 10 out of 10. But because of Siege Part 2, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I loved Sam, as you said, all the interactions, all the character moments. I loved all the shots of Atlantis, of the Daedalus. I really like the Daedalus. I really like it, and some more background characters that we get to see, Novak and Hermiod and all that. I think they did a great job in this episode with introducing just new people, and yeah, but still 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Ash. I'm gonna rate it a 9 out of 10. I, like you mentioned, Sam, I love the character interactions in this episode. So fun, so great. I think we get a lot of nice bows placed on a lot of character arcs, or characters really exemplify the best traits of themselves in this episode. However, this episode loses a point for me due to the John Ford confrontation. I just needed it to be a little meatier. I just wanted a little bit more. And I know they're saving it for later, but still, I need a little bit more to get me invested in their future confrontation.
And that was it. We're off to the races.
Season 2
With season
start.
2.
Woo! Oh.
Let's go. We are very excited to be watching this season. As you've heard many times, none of us remember this season very well. This will be a season that we will be watching with new eyes for sure. So make sure to check out the description box down below to get all of our socials if you want to keep up with us. We have our private social media accounts down below, as well as the Jumping Puddles account if you want to check that out to see when we post and new information that we drop sometimes that you might need to know. Our next episode we'll be watching is Intruder.
Ooh.
Yes. We are going to have a lot of thoughts on that one. So tune in next time. And thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, you clowns, listen up. I don't often get a chance to say this, so savor it. Good work, boys and girls. Let's go home.